Hey everybody, welcome to Takeoff with John Clark, and we always appreciate a little bit of time from this guy, the best draft analyst out there, Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network, and you can see him all 7 rounds of the draft. That's right, every single pick. Daniel Jeremiah will be on the NFL Network starting Thursday night. DJ, good to see you again.
Good to see you, buddy. How's it going?
Everything is awesome. We were just talking about the Phillies and Padres being in contention here, so it's a good time
it's good
here.
stuff, man. It's good stuff. I'm telling you, man. It's just there's an evil empire out there, and it's not in New York. It's in Los Angeles, and I need one of the two of us to go ahead and dethrone that group.
That's right. Everybody would be happy if the Phillies or Padres did that. So you're in the thick of it now. We're a couple days away from the NFL draft. Have you talked to your former boss, Howie Roseman? Have you talked to your guy? Like, what are you thinking here a couple days away from the draft?
I checked in with Howie last week, so it's been a while. A lot can change in draft land from the last time I talked to him. But excited. I mean, it's vintage Howie. Like let's go through all 30. I'm like, Howie, who knows what you guys pick 32nd? Like nobody, you have a clue. I don't have a clue who's going to be there. Like let's just wait and see how this thing falls. But you know, he's got everything lined up. He's got contingencies on contingencies, and I talked to a lot of these GMs during this time of year, and he's as excited or more excited than any of them. It doesn't matter if he's picking in the top 10 or picking 32.
So he's got 20 picks in this draft and next year's draft. So does that lead you to believe he would be more likely to move up or move back?
I think he'd move up. You know, I think there's so many people that want to get out in this draft that are trading back. That what is Howie done his entire career? He's zigged when everyone else is zagged, and he's going to be able to see if we have a premier player start to slip. Man, they're armed and ready to go. So, you know, I'm sure we'll get to it because we always talk about what we think could happen there and what the predictions might be. It's impossible to make a prediction of who's going to be there at 32, but I will make a prediction. Like if for some reason people overthink Jalen Walker like they overthought Nolan Smith, and he's not big enough, and the size, like if he starts to drift and drop, I'm like, oh my gosh, they could just go do the exact same thing all over again.
Yeah. So if I was going to ask you, being a betting man, would you take they draft an offensive lineman or defensive lineman, the lines, or you take in the field, everybody else, every other position? Which way are you going? I'm gonna
go bigs. You know, they've gotten some corners and receivers and done all that, but this feels like a fortify the bigs year for them.
And during their visits, they've brought in at least 8 defensive linemen and 7 offensive linemen. So that's, maybe 2/3 of their visits. Are there guys that you would picture being right there in the area at 32 that you could see Howie taking?
Yeah, I think you look at from an offensive line standpoint, Donovan Jackson is the one that kind of stands out to me, is an option there. Josh Connerly from Oregon would be another one that would make some sense, could be there. Maybe he goes earlier, but I could see him in that range right there. So those two guys on the offensive side of the ball. And then I think you flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. It'll be fascinating to see how the edge rushers, come off the board. To me, Shamar Stewart will be fascinating just because the production's not there, but you have all the traits and all the talent there. Is that an opportunity for him? You had Donovan Izaraku. Yeah, we'll see where they are with him from Boston College. So there's a good group of guys there. I wouldn't sleep on Nick Scorton either from A&M as a possibility.
So you talked about possibly trading up for Walker. You could see Howie doing that.
That'd be fun.
How about if there is a safety still there?
Yeah.
The top 2 safeties, maybe, in the mid-20s or late 20s. What do you think? Do you think Howie would trade up for a safety or not?
I don't know if he would trade up for him. I guess if it was close, I think they would, if the bigs start flying off the board, then that means somebody's going to get pushed down. So Malachi Starks is the one who makes the most sense. If he were to get pushed down the board and got within striking distance, maybe you move up a few spots just to secure him, and it wouldn't be that expensive. Eamon Wari's a fun player, is a great player, but I would think that Starks would probably match up better with them. So that would be my guess if he got within range and they just got picked clean along the defensive line.
But obviously, Howie, he's obsessed with offensive linemen. He said it. You build through the lines, and we saw him get his corners last year, and he's got those premium positions with the lines and then maybe corners and stuff like that. So is safety maybe not that position that you would trade up for? You would trade up for the premium positions, or has that changed with him paying money to
Yeah.
running backs and linebackers now.
I know. It's a whole new world we live in now. I think you have to look at this draft and go off of the grade. I don't think you want to get too hung up on that, with, okay, do you trade up for safety? Because to me, there's two safeties in there. It drops off a cliff. So if you do have that as an area you'd like to address, there's grades that warrant those guys being picked there. Man, again, I don't know how expensive it would be. I'm not talking about them going up into the teens or something, but if they could get, to 27, 28, and those guys are there, then yeah, go ahead and do it.
Last year, I know in your mock draft or your final mock draft, you were thinking possibly they could trade up or get the Lane Johnson replacement, which they do several years ahead, like we saw with Cam Jurgens. You still thinking that is a big possibility this year? Is it a strong draft in that area for a tackle?
I mean, if they're going to stick and pick, Connerly to me would be the only one I could conceivably be, there. I don't, that would be the only one. To me, Donovan Jackson almost makes more sense as someone who does have some flexibility to play guard or to play tackle. Maybe he can eventually kick out and be your right tackle. In the meantime, he's got somebody that could compete along the interior. It's they think so differently than every other organization because they are thinking 2 and 3 years down the line, more so than what they have right now. So that one to me, I just keep coming back to the offensive lineman. Those two names are the ones that I can't get out of my head.
And of course, 4 or 5 years ago, the Eagles traded out of the first round. And, I've talked to some people, Charles Davis, your colleague, he was saying maybe there isn't like 15 to 18 guys other than that first round grades. And then after that, maybe you can get the similar player at the end of the first round as the second round. Do you see that as well? Is there a possibility that Howie might say, you know what, I can get a guy on day 2 and get more picks?
Yeah. Just the problem's going to be, I think what you could do if they traded back, I think it would be, okay, we're going to trade back. We're going to amass more picks. And then we're going to trade back up. Like I could see them trying to maximize day 2. So maybe you're sandwiching into round 2. You're trading back to get some round 2 picks, and then you're trading back up from day 3 to get more day 2 picks. This would be a great draft to have, 4 or 5 guys on day 2. That would be perfect for where the value is.
So you think maybe they could get similar picks in the second round as they would at like 30, 31.
Yeah,
32.
but it doesn't make it like what comes with those trades when you're talking about 5s and 6s and 7s. Those guys aren't going to make this team. So like in terms of the value you're getting, I would then want to use those excess picks I'm getting and then come back in and get more of those players. But like my 14th player and my 38th player, there's not much difference this year.
Very interesting. We saw the defense lose half their starters. And Vic Fangio even joked with me, he's wearing Howie out. He needs players. So do you think in your heart of hearts that you got to go defense because you lost so many guys on defense?
They had so much depth though, and they have so many guys ready to step into those roles. I think they can line up and be fine. I think you're looking for more depth as you go along. I wouldn't, the other thing is with all these picks, like I wouldn't be surprised if you see how we traded for a veteran, use one of these picks and go see what's available on the veteran market. So you can address the defense a couple different ways. But I don't feel like, I would imagine that right after he walks out of Howie's office, that Stout's probably right behind him going in there to say, what he needs. So Vic wouldn't be the last one to lobby in that way.
So Eagles fans obviously seeing all those departing players, they're like, okay, we won our Super Bowl, our second one, but are we going to take a step back? If the Eagles are able to have another good Howie draft, do you think that the Eagles can be in that same area there contending for a Super Bowl, even with all the losses?
I do. I just think they have a good mix of the veteran stable players with superstars, led by Saquon. And I think this young group of defensive players, that secondary, as great as those guys played, they're going to get better. Like you haven't seen the best of Quinyon. You haven't even seen the best of Cooper. Like those guys got more in front of them. So I'm excited to see Jalix Hunt get a bigger role and see what he can do. Jalen Carter has just continued to get better since he got into the league as a dominant player, and look, Zach Bond, that was year 1. That was year 1 in the system. I know he's a veteran, but like, how would we assume he'd do anything but improve? So I think they're just fine.
You learned a lot from Howie, and you guys worked together. When you see the last 4 drafts getting multiple starters in each draft that helped you win this Super Bowl, and then you go back, Jalen Hurts was drafted. So you got 5 drafts where you got starters. Can you pinpoint or like say, okay, I saw him grow in this matter to make all these good drafts and have these really, really good drafts?
Well, look, he's been exceptional at it. And I think one of the most underrated characteristics of a decision maker and of a general manager is being able to adjust and not being rigid and not being so fixated on one thing. Howie's been able to just let the draft happen. Let's see what happens. And then we're not going to have a preconceived idea and be married to a player or a thought. It's just, we're going to wait. And I think of like a ship where there's somebody out on the deck with the binoculars that's just scanning the horizon for opportunity, not icebergs. And it's just like, well, there's the opportunity. The league was dumb enough to let this guy fall. We're going to go ahead and scoop him up and go get him. That's what he's done a tremendous job at.
And with you studying all the drafts that these teams have, would you say, I mean, is there a team doing it better right now?
You'd be hard pressed to find someone who's doing it better. I would say the only competition as of late would be the Rams. The Rams rebuilt their entire defense within 2 years to be a draft picks, and they hit on darn near all of them. They have done a really good job there. So I would say that would be the runner up, but it's hard to argue with the hardware to go along with that argument. So yeah, I would think that most people would agree with that one.
And it's pretty fascinating with Cam Jurgens getting locked up for another 4-year extension. You see basically almost all the players on offense are under contract for multiple years. And defense, they are so young on defense. They've got guys under, cheaper rookie deals. But is that pretty fascinating that the offensive side of the ball has the stars and the high-priced players, and the defense is so young, except for Zach Vaughn, really?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to kind of a Bill Walsh philosophy, like going way back, in that he wanted to be young, cheap, and fast on defense, and then they paid their offensive stars for stability on offense. And so, I think there's, this is not the newest idea. I think this goes back, decades back of that philosophy of just always on defense. You always want to be fast. You always want to be young. And the bonus here is you get to be cheap with the way the system's set up.
Do you think they do have a need on defense?
I mean, I just think you can always, okay, we get another edge rusher in here just with what's departed. So I think that's something they would love to address, the number of guys they like to roll through there. So, that would be, if I was going to pinpoint one area, say, okay, probably need to come away with one pretty early. That would be the spot.
You think safety's a need?
I mean, I think you can find one. To me, there's those two guys. If you don't get those two guys, I'm waiting till the third, fourth round, and I also think there's also the veteran market, that there's a whole other group of players that's still out there, that once we get through, you're going to see teams now that they've drafted guys, other players are going to be available. I do the Charger games, and they got Molden from the Titans for like a 6th round pick, and he came in, started a bunch, and played really, really well. Like there's this is not the end of the acquiring season here.
And Justin Simmons, he's practically begging to come play for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, there's guys out there. So I don't think they have the proverbial gun to their head at any position in this draft, to be honest.
All right. Well, Daniel Jeremiah, you're the best at what you do. I saw your 150 top players in the draft. I mean, you're in a couple of years, it's going to be top 300. It's amazing the work you do. So in your gut, Thursday night, first round, Eagles are coming away with what position, you think?
Oh, gosh. I'm going to say that the Eagles, I'll say that the Stout ends up winning at the end of the day, and I'll say Donovan Jackson ends up being their pick.
Wow. Okay. All right.
We'll see.
But probably on the Lions once again.
But if they do trade it for Jalen Walker, remember we kind of birthed that idea and just kind of threw that out there just by us kind of connecting.
All right. Well, I'm going to remember that. And if that pick becomes true, you've got a couple tickets waiting for you at Citizens Bank Park where the Padres come here in the playoffs.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Just as long as one of us gets rid of the Dodgers. That's all that matters.
Beat LA. It lives on forever.
You got it, buddy.
Daniel Jeremiah, we'll see you on NFL Network starting on Thursday night. Great job.
Thanks, Brady.